Every generation has had it hard. The greatest generation survived world wars. Boomers lived through social revolutions. Millennials watched the economy collapse twice before they turned 30. But something is different about Gen Z. Something that has never happened before in human history. And it is not the economy. It is not social media. It is not even the pandemic. It is all of those things hitting one generation at the same time during the most critical years of brain development. Because here is what nobody is saying out loud. Gen Z is not weak. Gen Z is not soft. Gen Z is the first generation in human history to grow up with their nervous system under constant attack, from every direction, with no break, and no manual for how to survive it. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why, and what psychology says about what this generation actually needs. Picture this: a 17-year-old sitting in her bedroom, doing homework, her phone lights up, a notification, then another, then 5 more. Someone she knows posted something. The comments are brutal. She checks her own profile. Her last post got half the likes of her previous one. Her brain immediately starts calculating what that means. Meanwhile, the newsfeed is showing a climate report, an economic forecast, a political crisis, a school shooting 3 states away. She puts the phone down, picks up her homework, cannot concentrate, picks the phone back up. She is not weak. She is not distracted. She is overwhelmed by a world that was never designed for the human nervous system to handle. The American Psychological Association has tracked anxiety levels across generations for decades. Their findings are stark. Gen Z reports significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness than any previous generation at the same age, including generations that lived through wars and economic depressions. Psychologists call what Gen Z experiences chronic low-grade threat activation, the nervous system's threat detection program running continuously at a low but constant level. Not one big crisis, not one traumatic event, just constant, relentless, never-ending input. Think about what that actually does to a developing brain. The human nervous system was designed to handle acute threats: a predator, a storm, a conflict, and then return to baseline. But Gen Z's nervous system never gets to return to baseline. The threat is always there, quiet, constant, draining. And this is where it becomes deeply important to understand. Gen Z did not choose this. They were born into a world that was already accelerating. And then 3 things happened, all at once, during the exact years when the human brain is most vulnerable. First, social media. Research from Jean Twenge at San Diego State University found that the rise in teen anxiety and depression correlates almost perfectly with the widespread adoption of smartphones in 2012. But it is not just screen time. It is the architecture. Every platform is engineered, deliberately, to trigger the threat detection system. Comparison, judgment, rejection, exclusion. All happening in real time, all quantified, all public. A teenager's brain, which is still developing its capacity for emotional regulation, being exposed to thousands of social judgments every single day. Second, the information overload. Previous generations knew about local problems, national problems occasionally, global crises rarely. Gen Z knows about everything, everywhere, all the time. Climate change, mass shootings, economic inequality, political collapse, pandemics, all flooding into a developing brain with no filter and no context for how to process it. Psychologists call this vicarious traumatization, absorbing the trauma of events you did not personally experience but cannot stop consuming. Third, the pandemic. The pandemic hit Gen Z during the most socially critical years of their development, the years when humans formed their deepest friendships, developed their identity, learn how to navigate the world as independent people. 2 years of isolation during the exact window the brain needed connection most. Research published in the Journal of Adolescent Health found that social isolation during adolescence has measurable long-term effects on brain development, particularly in regions responsible for emotional regulation and social bonding. Here is the paradox that most people completely miss. Gen Z is the most informed generation in human history. They know more about mental health than any previous generation. They have the vocabulary. They understand anxiety. They know what trauma looks like. And yet, that knowledge has not made them okay, because you cannot think your way out of a nervous system that is under constant attack. The brain does not distinguish between real threats and digital ones, between a predator and a brutal comment, between a physical disaster and a climate report at 2 a.m. The threat detection program responds the same way to all of it. And the more informed Gen Z becomes, the more threats their brain has to process. The knowledge is real. The anxiety it creates is also real. So what does psychology actually say? Not to put the phone down and go outside. That is too simple for what this generation is dealing with. What psychology says is this: first, nervous system regulation before everything else. Research from Stanford shows that physiological interventions, breathing, movement, cold exposure, are significantly more effective at reducing chronic anxiety than cognitive approaches alone. Because you cannot think your way out of a body that is in constant threat mode. Second, intentional disconnection. Not complete digital detox, but intentional windows of genuine offline experience, where the nervous system gets the signal that it is safe to rest. Third, and most importantly, community. Research consistently shows that the most powerful buffer against anxiety across every generation is genuine human connection. Not digital connection, not followers, not likes. The kind where someone sits with you in a room and sees you as a full human being. Gen Z has thousands of online connections and is the loneliest generation in recorded history. That gap is not a coincidence. It is the core of the crisis. So if you are Gen Z, your anxiety is not weakness. It is a completely rational response to an irrational amount of input. Your nervous system is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Detect threats. The problem is that you live in a world that has made everything look like one. And if you love someone in Gen Z, do not tell them to toughen up. Do not tell them previous generations had it harder. Sit with them. Listen to them. Let them feel like the world is a safe enough place to exist in, even for a moment. Because that moment, that small, quiet moment of genuine connection, is more powerful than any algorithm, any news cycle, any crisis that has ever tried to convince them they are not going to be okay. If this explains something you have been feeling, or someone you love, share this. They need to hear it. Subscribe to Within Minds for more psychology that actually explains the world we are all trying to survive. We will see you in the next one.